Hi, KJ Rosa speaking, and as I promised, I'm going to answer some of the frequently searched questions about Halloween costumes, as well as some of my own questions, since I promised in my last video about the history of iconic costumes. Yeah, let's get started. What are Halloween costumes? Halloween costumes are simply costumes worn on Halloween, and costumes are clothes that create the appearance of something else, whether it is a person, place, or thing. So this Wednesday Adams scenes.
This is my costume. I'm a homicidal maniac. They look just like everyone else.
Is pretty legit. Why do we wear Halloween costumes? The origin of the Halloween tradition was from Celtic culture and a festival called Samhain. Yes, it was spelled Samhain. Why English? Why? During the festival, it was believed that the other world and the human realm would be connected and there would be wandering ghosts. So people wore costumes and masks to disguise themselves from wandering spirits. That's the starting point of Halloween costumes. After the Christianization of Ireland in the 5th century, some of these customs were still retained, especially after All Saints' Day were established in the 7th century. All Hallow Eves, which occurred one day before All Saints' Day, became a tradition to keep pagan tradition in Christian observances. And if you notice, All Hallows' Eves became Halloween. And the tradition of All Hallows' Eve that related to Halloween costume was souling. Souling is a tradition where people, especially children and the poor, go door to door, singing prayers and songs while dressing up as saints, angels, devils, or ghosts. In exchange, they receive soul cakes to commemorate the dead in their family. Then, this tradition was brought to the United States when Irish and Scottish immigrants traveled to the States in the 18th century. However, it was after the World War II, with the rise of pop culture, that Halloween costume in the United States shifted towards superheroes and entertainment characters rather than the scary ones. By the 1960s, Ben Cooper Incorporation dominates around 70 to 80% of the Halloween costume market. So, Halloween costumes was rooted in Celtic festival of Samhain, where disguises were worn to ward off spirits. In the 7th century, All Hallows' Eve traditions merged pagan custom with Christianity, keeping the dress-up part for souling practice. And in the 18th century, Irish and Scottish immigrants introduced the tradition to the United States. By the 1960s, companies like Ben Cooper popularized pop culture-related Halloween costumes. What are the most popular Halloween costumes? The next question that many people searched for was, what is the most popular Halloween costumes? I don't know if they are asking because they want to avoid being cliche or if they are just asking out of curiosity. But anyway, I am pleasantly surprised to see that there are a couple of polls and surveys related to this question. Not so surprisingly, the data from the National Retail Federation's Halloween survey from 2018 and 2021, the Halloween costume store, and from Statista all indicate that the top two most popular Halloween costumes are witches and vampires. Another notable costume is the ghost one, which is in top 5 of the list most of the time. The survey that I find the most intriguing and somewhat amusing is from Halloween Costume Shop in 2022, asking, what Halloween costumes are you sick of seeing every year? Even though half of the respondents are pretty nice people and said that they don't really feel annoyed or sick of any costumes, 20% mentioned that they are sick of seeing ghost costumes. Maybe the costume is just so easy that it can be pulled off at the last minute and people just see it everywhere. And the next on the list is, the most popular costume, witches, followed by clowns and the scream. Surprisingly, vampires, despite being the second most popular, didn't make this cliche list. So the answer is, the most popular costumes are witches and vampires, and people might be bored of the vampire one a little bit less. Why are there many sexy Halloween costumes? This may not be the most asked question on Google, but it has always bugged me. Why there is a sexy version of every costume for women, or should I say, most Halloween costumes of female adults are somewhat revealing. Well, here's why, I guess. The concept of women wearing revealing costumes in general started in the 1940s, where pin-up photos were a massive thing, especially to promote movies or to use as propaganda. It was during the second wave of feminism or the sexual liberation movement around the 1960s that women explored and wore more revealing clothing. Also, the Greenwich Village Halloween parade was a significant event for the evolution of Halloween costumes. Starting in 1974, the parade was a great opportunity to break free from societal norms, particularly for marginalized communities, including the LGBTQ+ community. They would go all out and be outrageous because the event offered a rare opportunity to avoid the draconian laws prohibiting dressing as the opposite sex. Well, the law suggested that if it is clear that you are wearing costumes, then you couldn't be arrested for legitimate attempts at identity fraud, which this one include like dressing up as the opposite gender. Nowadays, the revolution is not the reason why people wear sexy costumes anymore. Maybe you could share with us why you are choosing the costume you're wearing so we can gain more insights. But I have heard or I have seen a lot of people say that they are wearing it because it is expecting of them, or like the options in the market isn't really enough for them. In summary, the trend of sexy Halloween costumes was linked to the sexual liberation and feminism to emphasize freedom and rebellion, and also particularly linked to the Greenwich Village Halloween parade. The next question is, why are there so many funny, non-scary or nonsensical costumes on Halloween? This is just my speculation, so please take it with a grain of salt. Traditionally, costumes were meant to resemble spirits during Samhain. However, since the souling tradition where children dress up and ask for soul cakes in medieval Europe, children didn't only dress up as spirits or demons, but occasionally as angels or saints. After that, Halloween costumes evolved over time. In the 1930s, the first Halloween costume referencing pop culture emerged. Ben Cooper, a theatrical costume designer, established Ben Cooper Incorporation in 1937. He created affordable vinyl costumes with plastic masks, which were widely sold in department stores. Cooper's company also licensed characters like Spider-Man in 1963 and obtained Batman costumes rights after the superhero trend was popular. And after that, Halloween costume could be just whatever you want it to be. So dressing up as non-scary costumes began in the medieval time during the souling, where some people would dress up as angels or saints. In the 1930s, costume companies like Ben Cooper expanded costume options, leading to the wide selection of non-scary, humorous, and nonsensical Halloween costumes. Are Halloween costumes offensive? The question of whether a particular costume is offensive or not seems like an endless debate. I think it is at least easy to answer that red face, brown face, and yellow face are inappropriate. Any costume worn to mock people of any race are obviously problematic. But what makes people argue the most is more about this topic of cultural appropriation. Well, to be clear, I'm not from the States and I'm not sure how extreme people take this in real life either. So people describe cultural appropriation as when customs, practices or clothes of one culture are used without acknowledgement or respect by another culture, especially a dominant one. However, as this is quite an abstract subject, there could be people who don't care if anything is inappropriate at all, to people who regard everything as cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation concepts actually began when mass production and big companies gained profits from misrepresenting a minority's cultures and making the culture exotic or funny to wear, but somehow people expand the meaning of it, so you can't wear anything that is not from your culture, which is weird. Like one of the extreme cases that I've seen is when foreigners wearing yukata or kimono are attacked online as cultural appropriation. And trust me, most Japanese or other Asians don't think it is inappropriate for foreigners to wear their traditional clothes. In the case of ninja costumes, I don't understand how some people call it cultural appropriation at all. You can dress up as all kinds of things like knights, spies, pirates, or even medieval kings on Halloween. These costumes are not accurate, sure, but no harm is done to anyone, so why do some articles online list ninja costume as problematic? Next are Native American costumes, and I think this one makes more sense why some people would consider this cultural appropriation. Because, unlike ninjas, which is only like a part of Japanese people, native costumes try to represent the whole population, and natives have been made fun of quite often in media. And what people found disrespectful was more of this headwear than the entire costume, as this eagle feather headwear is a regalia representing status, which makes this headwear significant for the natives. If we talk any further, I'm afraid this would turn out to be a whole video about cultural appropriation, so I would just give you a general guideline that I think that it would make sense, but you are free to share your opinion if you think differently. So here's my general guideline. If you wear a costume to mock a culture, that's downright disrespectful. And if you're wearing a costume from a minority or oppressed group, you should take a cautious act and do research to see what you can wear and what you can't wear. And if you're worried if your child can dress up as Disney characters like Mulan, Pocahontas or Tiana, I think you can absolutely let your child wear it. Just don't do black or yellow face. Oh, and this is outside of the Halloween context. If you buy clothes or accessories from a local or native of that culture and don't plan to wear them in any degrading way, just do it. You are appreciating and supporting their culture, not disrespecting it. And those are the most frequently asked questions about Halloween costumes. I hope that your question is answered if you have any. Well, I also post about Gothic history and some dark fashion videos on my channel. Please subscribe or check out my previous videos if you are also an enthusiast of all things dark and Gothic. Hope to see you in the next video. Well, actually, I am quite unwell while I record this video. Like, I have had a runny nose for almost a week now, but I hope my nasal voice, or actually like this weird voice from the cold, isn't too noticeable. I hope. Like, I really hope so. Well, good day everyone, and happy Halloween.